morning, it's 8:30. I'll call this morning's meeting to order. We're looking for an approval of the agenda. We do have an addition to the agenda, a request for authorization to replace a half-time mail clerk and approval to replace a financial worker within social services due to retirement.
Move to approve with additions.
We have a motion to approve with additions.
Second.
And a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Citizens to be heard. Are there any citizens wishing to speak on anything not on the agenda? Anyone here to speak on anything not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move into the approval of payment of bills and vouchers.
Move approval.
We have a motion to approve
Second.
and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. We have our minutes presented from May 8th and 15th.
Move approval of both.
We have a motion to approve both as presented.
Second.
And second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. We have our employee recognitions today. Okay, for Ann Rodke-Lashowski.
Yes, she is.
Good morning, Ann. Ann, this plaque is presented to you today in grateful recognition for 20 years of outstanding service to Clay County and citizens. Thank you for all you've done. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
I'd like to say a few words on behalf. I worked with Ann for the past 17 of her 25 years, and I find her work to be nothing short of fantastic. She's very conscientious of her work. She pays a great attention to detail in everything she does. Ann is always willing to lend a hand to create financial spreadsheets or looking up expenditures for our department. She's very good at keeping us in line as well and making sure we follow the rules. Ann is fun to work with. She works hard and sets a very good example for the rest of the county. Congratulations on your 25 years, Ann.
Thanks for committing to those 5 extra years. You're going to be here. Amy Rude. Morning, Amy. Amy, today we're presenting you with a plaque to 20 years of outstanding service to Clay County and its citizens. Thank you for all you've done within that time. Julie's got some words to say to you, but thank you very much.
I've been fortunate to work with Amy for the last 20 years. She's an amazing employee. Amy's been with us as a full-time employee, as a part-time employee, and convinced her to come back full-time, and we're very grateful for that. She is a role model for everybody there. She is an acting supervisor when she's working at Clay County. We're very lucky to have her. She's an asset to Clay County, so thank you, Amy.
Troy Amundsen. Can we come down? Yeah.
It's never ending, is it?
Be careful, Troy.
Troy, this plaque is presented to you today for 25 years of grateful service to Clay County and its citizens. We're very thankful for all that you've done. Kathy.
I'll be careful what I say. I was able to steal Troy from the juvenile center, which he spent most of his illustrious career with Steve. He now works in our detox program. He is an awesome leader. It's a tough job working with the substance abuse clients that he serves. So he's got his challenges, but he rises to the occasion. He leads with humility and compassion, and Many people in the community have talked about the need for our detox and how it's part of the whole continuum of care. And Troy does an awesome job. He's on the Mayor's Blue Ribbon Task Force, and he also was successful in getting the opioid use disorder grant that we have. And Janelle's here. She was our previous leader of detox. She understands Troy's pain when he has the challenges.
As Kathy mentioned, Troy spent the better part of 20 years with the Juvenile Center, really leaving a lasting imprint on a lot of the things that we do today and a lot of the kids that we serve. And I think in addition to that loyalty and dedication, what he has is that uncanny ability really to relate to anybody and everybody at whatever level he needs to. And so on behalf of myself and the staff of the Juvenile Center, I'd like to congratulate Troy on his 25 years.
Ryan Alderman. Ryan, today we're honoring you for 25 years of service to Clay County and its citizens. Thank you for all that you do, and thank you too for being the face. I know that a lot of people, when I come in, are always seeing you, and they always know you by name, and they're always saying, "Hey Ryan, how's it going?" So thank you for all that you do. We appreciate it.
Well, for the last 8+ years, Ryan has, as Jenny said, has been the face of the courthouse and Clay County Sheriff's Office's presence over here. When you talk about like customer service with employees, he is kind of what you model after. He deals with the public with such a calming demeanor. He's compassionate, firm, kind of puts everyone at ease when they come into this building, which we all know when they're coming here. Anxieties are a little high, and he can de-escalate pretty much any situation. He is a definite asset to this county, and congratulations.
Now I'd like to recognize a donation from Scandia Lutheran Church for $50 going towards work detail. Thank you very much for your generosity and donation. Georgia, can we do your addition really quick? Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for allowing me to add this to the agenda. I received a resignation for a part-time employee in the copy mill in the Family Service Center yesterday. That employee is going full-time over to the correctional facility, so we're requesting authorization to fill the .5 position in the mailroom.
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve.
Second.
And a second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you, Georgia. All right, Lynn Foss, resolution to incorporate summary of water courses into the Clay County Local Water Plan. Good morning.
Good morning. Just wanted to present this to you. I thought it would be better to come up in case there were any questions.
Okay.
Part of the buffer law that the legislature passed requires the SWCD to adopt and submit additional waters that may benefit from a buffer. What we did with the office, we went through and with the new LiDAR data, the original buffer map, or the original public waters map, was based on a 2 square mile drainage area. So we ran that again with the new LiDAR data, developed the map that was included in your packet with a whole lot of red lines on it. And then what we did is we went through and eliminated things down. Gabe Volts in our office that has been doing the majority of the buffer work. We used some criteria, things that are already on the map, stuff that's less than a mile, anything that would connect public water to a public water, or a public drainage ditch to a public drainage ditch. Some situations where maybe part of that waterway was farmed through, but not all of it. So we basically cleaned up that map down to the other map that I sent you, which is what our board passed as a resolution to adopt into the local water plan. So I sent the copy of that resolution. The only thing in that was there was the one optional whereas, and that would be up to you guys whether you would choose to include that. I think that would be a good thing because it does definitely state that this is not a required buffer area. It's recommended is the only thing that would be with that. So if there's any questions, I guess that would be why I'm here.
Commissioner Gross.
These optional areas, I know they're talking about giving some funding. Would they have funding for those optional areas if someone wants to do it optional?
Yeah, that would be one of the reasons that we would include this, is that as long as it's in the local water plan, then we could go after funding if the state had some available to, or use some of our state cost share dollars, things like that, to help offset the cost of some of these.
Okay.
If the landowner chose to do it, it's all voluntary on those areas.
All right. Thank you.
I definitely think adding that optional whereas I think is important. And as you did say, that was pretty well vetted out at your board level and
Yeah.
those elected officials at that level as well.
Yeah, like I said, we went through and cleaned it up. Dave actually went out and drove and visually looked at all of these sites to verify what they were. You can see some stuff from air photography, but he
Right.
actually physically went out and visited each site, each area, and looked at it and made a judgment call on it based
Okay.
on the criteria that we'd established.
Okay.
Do we need a motion on this, or do we just, or it's just approved?
The resolution was
resolution.
included in the packet, so I would assume it would require.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the resolution.
We have a motion to approve the resolution. Commissioner Gross, did you want the optional whereas?
Yes, with the options.
Second.
And a second. Discussion?
The maps here, are we going to have a way to somehow through our GIS department to overlay these so that this isn't real clear?
Right.
So I'm
We
assuming.
do have all this in a GIS format already.
Okay,
That's the
okay.
way we developed it. It was just to be able to provide some sort of a map, and this will then be incorporated into the local water plan. I believe that the last step in the process is to notice all of the state agencies. There's that whole list that every time we do an update or an amendment to the water plan, there's a whole list of agencies that we have to notice that that's happening. We just need to provide that this was included. It's just an addendum, or it's not that major. We don't have to go through the whole process, I guess.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? If not, we have a motion and a second to approve the resolution to the water plan. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you.
Thanks to your office for the work that it's taken to go out in the field and gather this. All right, Laura Westberg, the update on the FM Plastic Bag Task Force. Good morning, Laura.
Good morning.
I think we already got the resolution.
It's another copy.
Just in
An
case.
accurate copy.
Revised. Good deal. So today's a big day.
Yeah, today is the Day Without Plastic Bags in Fargo, Moorhead, Dilworth, and West Fargo. So they all signed that joint proclamation.
Okay.
And we're actually going to be celebrating that at 10 a.m. at Prairie Roots Food Co-op.
Okay.
So just to start out a little bit, I'll give you a little bit of a background on the task force. So plastic bags have been in discussion for the last couple of years, and we actually first formed in March of 2017. We have members from both sides of the river, local officials, residents, as well as key stakeholders like the North Dakota Grocers Association, the Home Builders Association, and River Keepers. So plastic bags are an issue because plastic, the way it breaks down, it just breaks down into smaller and smaller pieces, creating this microplastic, which can be found almost anywhere. It's a big problem in marine environments, but it also can be found in soils. It's studies have shown that it can be found in foods like shellfish and even like sugar or honey. And plastic has been found to be able to absorb harmful chemicals and then give them off later. In addition, I mean, we've all seen plastic bags stuck in trees and whatnot, and animals actually misidentify them as food. Often sea turtles misidentify them as jellyfish and can starve to death because they eat them. Something like that actually happened to a local cow. A rancher in Holly actually had one of his cows eat a plastic bag, and the cow died because of that. Sorry, I'm just trying to remember.
That's okay.
So basically, what we've done so far is we've looked more into the problem in our area. So we've done research like asking grocery stores about how many bags they use, as well as just doing waste sorts to see if residents really know that they can recycle them. We've also made residential recycling guides and this boomerang bag program for stores. So we provide them with free reusable bags and a bin. So then if customers forget their bags, we can just give them free reusable bags. So like you said, today is a day without plastic bags in the 4 cities in our area. And I have a resolution here, basically just asking the Clay County Board of Commissioners to reaffirm that effort to kind of confront this issue of plastic bag pollution.
Well, I think Commissioner Campbell, were you part of that initial dialogue?
Yes, I served on that task force, and there's been a lot of good work done, and I thank you for the work you've done on it. And I think it's important for everybody to, we're not going to be able to change the culture of this overnight in terms of the use of plastic bags, but I think what's really important that people need to recognize now is that plastic bags, and you mentioned a little bit of it, but they can also be recycled. Mm-hmm. And I think we should do a better job of making sure we get, these bags to locations where they do collect them. Mm-hmm. And, I think you gave a presentation one time that showed you could have a little can under your cupboard or something, and the amount of plastic bags you could stuff in there to build them up and then take them someplace. But I think we need to do a better job of that. And it does, from time to time you can see around, and they're blowing everywhere, and they're kind of a nuisance. But thank you for the work and that you're doing on it.
Discussion. If not, we do have a resolution.
I'll move the resolution.
We have a motion to approve Resolution 2018-24.
Second.
And a second. Any further discussion? Thank you for your presence in the community, and good luck at 10 o'clock when you have your thing. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you, Laura. All right, we have an update from our correctional facility transition team. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, we're just going to give a brief update. I'm going to turn over to Katie. Well, first I'd like to say that I'm very thankful and grateful for the people we picked for transition because they worked so hard. I can't even imagine having to do that by myself. There's no way I could have got it done. They work diligently every day. They put a full day in. They stay late. The work they're doing is incredible. A couple of things that Justin and I have been working on while transition is going on is the hiring process. We pretty much are doing weekly interviews for people. The other thing we're doing is coordinating with vendors to come into the facility to get their products in there. For example, Reliance Telephone has to run lines for not only the telephones but video visitation. Some other things we're working on is our food delivery plan because we don't have a kitchen. We currently don't have a kitchen, but bring our food in now, we might have to do a whole different process for that, where we have to buy some of our FF&E now for our kitchen that we're going to be building to transport trays that have already been dished up from another facility. So another thing we're working on is working with construction and going through and
looking at the jail and see if there's any issues that come up. We've come up with a couple of things, and we've brought them to construction meetings and kind of monitor those things to make sure they're staying on top of them. But the majority of the work really is coming down to Katie and her team, so I'm just going to turn it over to Katie.
Morning, Katie.
Good morning. So we've been nearing the completion of all of our policies and procedures. It's clearly defining all the daily operations that need to happen during any given day. Each policy and procedure has clear and definite differences with appropriate content. Part of each policy involves forms and paperwork, and we're trying to go paperless, so we've revised all of those forms. And one of those major forms is the inmate handbook. We've got every aspect of all the policies and procedures that relates to the inmate, and we are providing information concerning the available services that are going to be available to the inmates, paying particular attention to every detail, explaining and defining the purpose of the inmate handbook. And since we're going paperless, that's going to be part of the electronic systems that's going to be entering the new jail. Our Reliance telephone system is working with us regarding that. So instead of a whole booklet that we've been using currently, it's all going to be available on the kiosk that we're going to have available to the inmates. So part of our training that we're developing for, that's going to be coming up very shortly, we're utilizing the policies and procedures, the post orders, the master schedule, the inmate handbook, and a whole bunch of other documents. And the transition team is preparing the lesson plans for each of these topics, developing practical exercise aids, adapting our existing scenarios to training modules and examinations. We are currently preparing the training curriculum. So at the start of a day, we're going to do this and so on. And the itinerary includes identifying methods for tracking competency levels for the trainees and establishing a plan for the staff that needs additional training. We have to train for new and existing staff, so we're developing a plan to assist the staff in becoming familiar to the posts, orienting them to the layout of the facility, ensuring the staff are familiar with the names of all the spaces, the rooms, and anything that's going to be happening in that area. Providing training opportunities to staff to learn how their posts relate to the overall facility operations, developing a plan to perform the major operations, and testing the facility operating systems and the schedules, enhancing the staff teamwork and confidence. We've touched on the electronic systems, and it's challenging. So as a team, we're trying to work with those electronic systems and see what would be best and how to use that during the daily operations and dealing with the inmate population. The staff will be required to participate in simulations. The simulation training will combine the document training and the activities to the specific plans that we're developing. Let's see, the training officer will observe and critique the simulation while at the same time providing an opportunity to test the equipment and systems. So it's challenging because we have to involve both the new and the existing staff. So we're trying to find things that'll keep the staff interested and make sure that everyone is trained, just floating along with. Inmates and their families will also need an orientation. So we're developing that type of thing. And working with Reliance, they've been really good about it. And our IT people are helping us out a lot too, making sure that the message is sent out to the public to let them know what they need to do in order to, there's going to be a lot of changes, and we're going to try to help the public and the inmates and their families to become familiar with the new environments.
Yeah, we plan on updating that website so it has more detail on the various things, especially since we're going to be going through 2 phases and visitation can be really confusing for families. So we want to make sure that that's pretty clear and that it says it's temporary and maybe give better directions on where to go because we have a temporary lobby, which is going to be kind of, you know, interesting where it's located at for the public to come in for visitation. So
I think as clear as you can make that ahead
Yeah,
of time.
I
just to
agree.
prevent any confusion when people are visiting. I mean, that's a high stress issue and
Yeah.
when people are visiting.
Are you bringing people, excuse me, are you bringing people in then, I mean inmates' families in to train them, or do they do it on the website?
No, it'll be all on the website, but we'll also do some orientation with the inmates themselves so they can pass it on to their families.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Commissioner Campbell?
Katie, when you talk about your procedures, you have a procedure that you're going to have in place. You're going to have to train them, your new employees, both the old and the new jail as well, right? Because they're going to be working in the old jail while the
Right.
old employees go into the new jail.
Right, which
So
is
you-
making this really challenging.
Right,
so.
right. In terms of the procedures, I know Julie mentioned, you know, in phase 2, we will have a kitchen and that type of thing. So are you incorporating into your plan now all the procedures that are going to apply to phase 2 as well?
We're
Okay.
separately and combined, and we're trying to make it so that there's a smooth transition from will be existing to what's going to be coming into place eventually, so.
And you've kind of noted within all of your procedures
Each one, yeah.
which ones might change too once phase 2 is put in place. Very good.
I know the most recent one we're working on is court transports because this area back here is going to be blocked off and we won't be able to use our tunnel for a while. So we have to have a whole procedure for how we can get people to court and how as court can get people to the jail because it'll be completely different for the temporary phase. So that'll be something with actually coordinate with construction engineers a little bit too. So.
Very good. Yeah, that's an important component. I suppose that's because some of it's because of the construction of both phase 2 and the juvenile center, right?
Yeah, well, the tunnel and then where they're placing their trailer and we need to be able to get to the back door for the tunnel access. So we need to be able to have a little area to bring a vehicle in there. And from what I saw in the plans, I think it will work, but we need to talk with them a little bit more about that, so.
Okay, well, they're moving that trailer real soon,
Yep.
so you might want to.
Yep, and then where they're moving it isn't exactly where we need it. I mean, where it affects us, so.
Brian, did you have a question?
No, I do have a comment if Julie's done.
I'm done. Yep.
Okay, well, Madam Chair, in my former life, we went through an accreditation process for a law enforcement agency, and I think Chief Whalen recognizes that too. I don't think Moorhead did that, but probably we're exposed to that. And that's reviewing every single policy and procedure that you have. And that's what Julie and her team here in Kate have done. And it's so vitally important to eliminate mistakes going into this. But they have worked really diligently at doing this, and we really have to take our hats off to them. But also the board recognized that when Julie put up, I don't want to say a little fight, but she was persistent.
I was persistent.
She was persistent that this needed to happen, and we are now, a month and a half away from a ribbon cutting, and all heck is going to break loose as far as training and things. So I compliment both you folks, the board and the Sheriff's Department and the jail for undertaking that. It is so vitally important. It really is. So you guys invested a lot. That's good.
Commissioner
I
Gross?
have one question. Aside from what's going on, phase 2, how long is that going to take? I mean, the kitchen facility, and what's the ending date of that thing?
May 2019, June.
Next spring, next spring, summer. So they're going to get a lot of the work done. They've got to Madam Chair, but they've got to do demolition first this fall. But then there's a transition to get everybody trained and get all of the prisoners moved back in and that procedure going. Then they're going to demo the law enforcement center. That'll only probably take a week or so, and then they've got to get the footings in. They hope to get that work done before winter, and then they can finish it off over the winter. And so if history proves out here, they have done such a tremendous job of moving this thing along that they'll be on schedule with it. I'm confident of it.
Yesterday, during our law library meeting, it came up again just to, when we're moving that terminal, just to make sure that the service isn't interrupted. And I think Jenny said she'd make conversation with Tim, so he's aware of what that need is. But, you know, we really want to make sure that that service is still present. Okay. Any other comments? Questions? All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Joe, can we take yours really quick?
Thanks, lady.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm coming to you today to request approval to purchase a utility cart. A couple years ago, I think we started looking at this, feeling the need to have it. We have a little golf cart that we've been utilizing, and as the campus grows and gets bigger, we have tried to turn that into a little bit more than what it can handle. And so we tried to put a little box on it and stuff, and we've got some flat tires and everything. And we used to do grounds with the pickups, and now that it's more campus, we have sidewalks and stuff. So we did a lot of looking around and figuring out exactly what, you know, is what we need. And we priced out a bunch of different options, and the cheapest option came from RDO, and it was actually the most stripped down option we could find too, because we really just need a...
Is this a gator?
Yeah, it's a gator. Yep, it's basically a stripped down gator, and with a dump box, and it's pretty basic. And we got a pretty good price through the government discount at RDO, and we found not even really almost a similar unit, but something of this kind of that style at Kubota, and that was about $14,000. So we got quite a bit of a difference. So we feel we're getting a good price on this. And our biggest thing is we didn't want something that rips up the grass and everything. And we felt we found the perfect unit here at RDO. So requesting to move forward with purchase that. And it would be taken out of our internal services. There's plenty of room in there for that.
Well, we know often you kind of wait to the last minute, I mean, to the extreme
Yep.
need to bring something to us, so I
Yep.
know that this is something that you really need, and the grounds look phenomenal.
Yep.
Your crew has done a great job, it's beautiful. Motion to, excuse me, a motion to approve the purchase from RDO.
Second.
And a second. Sorry, any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Joe.
Don't be surprised if you see Brian on it. So.
He's only got a month.
Thank you.
See you, Joe.
All right, next to, that consideration for sponsorship, I think we're still waiting. Is Bruce planning on coming?
Was.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's see. Kevin, could you do a couple? No?
Well, again, let's see.
Sorry.
Gotta open this up here. All right, on the 22nd, because we got to go back 2 weeks here, I guess. So on the 22nd, we had a Highway Tracking Committee meeting, and we heard some more about the Casal 1 Broadway Bridge project that they're looking at doing. They're doing a study on safety issues. Apparently that bridge is sloping, so they're doing some study on that to see what can be done. Talked about training for road maintenance through a national county engineers update. We talked some more about the CASA 3 truck traffic update, and our highway engineers sent out letters to these trucking companies asking them to avoid that road because of its deterioration. And And I think we're going to be talking more about issues that you had raised regarding planning commission issues with highways, so that we at least got that on the radar to talk about. So the following day, I had Prairie Lakes Municipal Solid Waste meeting, and that meeting went very well. The new boiler is working really good now, and they had a stack test that shows the thing being able to really increase the volume of steam production, and so that all is going well. We're on budget again this year, so that's good news for that facility. Thursday we had the solid waste meeting. Not too much to update there. We got annual updates on the collection updates from the cleanup week from Shannon Thompson and Julie Kennedy, and also from the city. And on Tuesday the 29th, we had a juvenile construction update, and there wasn't a lot happening because we were still waiting on the permits, which we now understand we have in place, so it's going to be moving along good, and we're going to be getting timelines of things that they're going to be doing, similar to what we get for the construction updates on the jail and correctional facility and the law enforcement center. That same day, we also did have the meeting regarding the correctional facility and the law enforcement center, and those projects again just keep on. We're on schedule. It's close. Brian, I don't know if Brian might want to get into some details in his report. And then the following day, we had another meeting on the subcommittee for the scheduling of the events for the grand opening, and we're getting close. I think we're going to meet one final time here Wednesday, a week from Wednesday.
13th, I think.
13th, yeah. And at that point, we will be ready to go with invitations, and there will be a lot of invitations sent. That concludes my report.
Great, thank you. Okay, we'll go ahead with our 9:10. We're skipping down to number 6, a presentation and proclamation for Elder Abuse Awareness Day. Pat Blair.
Good morning.
Good morning. You have a crew with you today.
I do. I wanted to introduce my adult protection workers.
Hey.
Okay. All right, so, and I have Lori with me today too.
Yes.
Okay, so, maybe we'll do introductions first, and then I'll say a few things, then maybe Lori can add a few things too. So, yeah.
I'm Corinne Graham, the full-time adult protection worker for Clay County.
Okay, and Pat Boyer.
Lori Conroy, Assistant County Attorney. Tracy London, I do have adult protection.
Okay, so our group is on the Coordinated Community Response Committee, which is a group with both Cass County, North Dakota, and Clay County, Minnesota. And our focus or our vision is to prevent abuse and neglect in later life. And so we have worked really hard with many people in both Cass and Clay counties, including law enforcement, different providers, and the county adult protection workers on a couple different things. One big thing is educating the public about abuse and neglect for persons who are elderly. And the other thing is a speakers bureau and a couple other activities that kind of connect with that education piece to the community. So last year in Clay County, we had a total of 396 marked intake reports, and those would be reports that would come to the county for screening on whether or not we should investigate for adult protection. Corinne and Tracy investigated a total of 160 reports. The things that I have noticed just in the last couple of years is they are working a lot more with banks than we ever did before due to financial exploitation. I think our number one allegation is self-neglect, but financial exploitation is probably the second one. So we are seeing more of that. We're partnering a lot with area law enforcement in all of the towns in Clay County. And we are also partnering a lot more with the county attorney's office, which hasn't happened so much in the past because of the focus. So, so we have the World Elder Abuse Awareness Day coming up on June 14th, and I did bring a program schedule if anyone is interested in having one. And we have the proclamation that we would like read. But before we do that, maybe it would be good to have Lori speak too about the work that she has done in the county attorney's office for charging out elder abuse or related cases.
Sure. So this has been a part of my primary caseload for several years now. After Ms. Marshall made the transition to civil work in our office, we have consistently seen financial exploitation cases coming into our office. We have also seen a number of physical cases, mistreatment of residents, cases like that lately. The Moorhead Police Department has a program right now where they're rotating a sergeant through the Investigations Bureau. And right now that sergeant is Scott Kostowitz, and one of his primary duties is working through what Pat referred to as the MARC reports. So those come into the one-call system in the state of Minnesota, and then working with Adult Protective Services to do concurrent investigations on those. And I think that if Sergeant Kostowitz were here, he would tell you that that keeps him very busy. He was just in my office yesterday working through something that he's investigating right now. And it did involve one of the local banks that had flagged a concern with transfers. So I think that that has been a trickle-down effect. I know that Wells Fargo is one of the banks that as a corporation has put a focus on flagging and identifying wrongful transfers and things like that. We're also hoping to continue that on a local level with education through the Speakers Bureau with the Coordinated Community Response Group. The idea is that if different entities, banks, businesses, perhaps assisted living centers, things like that, want to have someone come in and talk about various aspects of elder abuse, that we would have some presentations ready to go and could shift who those presenters are depending on what they want the focus to be, whether it's law enforcement, prosecution, adult protective services, or some combination of those three. I know that another thing that is being worked on as part of the Coordinated Community Response team is looking at gaps. We have the benefit of looking at both Minnesota's system and North Dakota's system, and oftentimes we hear the North Dakota APS workers admiring what's in place here in Minnesota. So Minnesota can be proud of itself, and Clay County can be proud of itself in the advancements that have been made in guardianship, conservatorships, in the laws that govern criminal conduct related to elder abuse, including financial exploitation, physical abuse and neglect. We've had a couple of trials related to this, and I will tell you that there's still a lot of education to be done on the part of jurors. Sometimes I equate it to what used to be the case with domestic violence, probably looking back 3 decades ago. There seems to be a lot of need to educate the public, which ultimately becomes our jury pool on these types of cases. So that is a goal of ours as part of the Elder Abuse CCR. We're also benefiting from being able to staff cases through an elder abuse forensic team, which is made up of law enforcement, APS workers, and prosecutors from both North Dakota and Minnesota. It is a confidential discussion, much like exists on child criminal sexual conduct cases, but that allows us to brainstorm during the investigation stages to try to come up with the best solution. Sometimes that's prosecution and sometimes it's not. So I think that from the standpoint of the county attorney's office, there is a lot of work to be done with these cases. The cases are coming in, and we're trying to adjust how we address them in trial work and in resolution, and it's a work in progress. Questions?
Well, it looks like you have a good agenda for your Awareness Day. I think it's, you talk about the need for continual education, and I think the more we can do things like this, the more we can help educate key people in the community. Any further discussion?
And we have the proclamation.
Yep. If
So
not,
if I can just, this, that you just handed out, it doesn't, if somebody were to just see this, it doesn't say where it's at.
Oh, yeah, actually, it's full already.
Oh, okay.
We have a waiting list for
Oh.
people to get in.
Oh, wow.
So,
Okay.
it's at
yeah.
the Yum Comes though.
Yes, I
Yeah.
see, it's on, I know it's on this one, but not on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, there is a proclamation, so I'll go ahead and read that. World Elder Abuse Awareness Day Proclamation of Clay County, whereas Wednesday, June 15th, 2018 is World Elder Abuse Awareness Day, whereas the National Council on Aging reports that 1 in 10 Americans aged 60 and above have experienced some form of elder abuse. Whereas elder abuse can be financial, emotional, physical, and sexual, it includes people who are neglected and those who neglect themselves. Whereas we are all responsible for building safer communities by watching for and reporting possible abuse or neglect to the Minnesota Adult Abuse Reporting Center. Whereas the Clay and Cass Coordinated Community Response Team's vision is to create a community in which people in later life can live in safety with dignity and respect. Whereas the Clay Cass Coordinated Community Response Team will hold an event on Thursday, June 14th, 2018 in observance of World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. Now therefore, in recognition of World Elder Abuse Awareness Day, we, the Commissioners of Clay County, proclaim the 14th of June 2018 as Elder Abuse Awareness Day in Clay County and encourage all Clay County citizens to recognize, report, and protect all vulnerable adults from abuse and neglect.
I move the proclamation.
We have a motion to approve the proclamation. Commissioner Campbell?
I'll second that, but it's that date of this, where it says now therefore proclaim the 14th day of June. Is that supposed to be the 15th?
Well, it's World Elder Abuse Day on June 15th, but we're having our event on June 14th.
We have our special.
That's why.
I'll still second.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you for your work.
And thank you for coming to read
Yes,
the
we will see you
proclamation.
there.
Wear purple on the 14th and the 15th. That is the
Purple.
color of World Elder Abuse Awareness Day.
All right, Rhonda.
Good morning.
Good
Thank
morning.
you for allowing me to have this board edition. We have another retirement in our income maintenance unit. This is, goodness sakes, we've lost probably almost 80 years of experience in our income maintenance unit over the last couple years with retirements. We kind of knew some of these were coming, and we have another one. Her last official employment date would be August 24th. However, she's going to be using some vacation time, so her last working day will be July 20th. She has been with us for 27 years and works in our adult program area in our income maintenance unit. So she administers our general assistance program, housing support, food, supplemental nutrition assistance program for our adult caseload. I'm requesting permission to replace her. The hope would be that in posting her position, we could get somebody hired by mid-July, so we'd have just a little bit of overlap with her last working day and her last employment date. Wage calculator would not suggest a budget savings this year. However, next year, the current employee's at the top of the grid, and assuming we hire somebody at the lower end of the grid, we would see a budget savings in future years. But because of the payout, we wouldn't see a savings this year.
Okay.
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve, Commissioner Gross.
Second.
And a second, Commissioner Henry. Discussion. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, Stephen, we can take yours. We have a request to fill a vacancy for a full-time juvenile counselor.
Morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Yes, we recently had a resignation in our secure department, and we are looking to request to replace that position. It's a newer employee, and so there really wouldn't be any cost or savings, I guess, either. So that's the request I have before you.
Questions?
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve, Commissioner Whalen,
Second.
and a second, Commissioner Gross. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Thank you. Commissioner
Haney, do you have a report?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Enough here, I don't know.
On Wednesday, the 23rd of May, I went to the City Council chambers and there was a presentation by the city engineer staff regarding the 21st Street underpass project. And there was a full house and a lot of questions were asked about the project moving forward. Then on Tuesday, the 29th, I also attended the City Council meeting and they had a public hearing on the 21st and 21st Street project. Many of the same people were there. They asked different questions, and the amount of knowledge that was disseminated by the city staff was very useful to the people. It's a tremendous project that's going to be taking place over the next 3 years. If they signed the contract last night, I did not hear a word if they did or not.
I saw in the paper they did.
Did they? Okay. Then on Thursday, the 31st, last week, I attended the retirement event here in the courthouse for Judge Steve Cahill after judging in Clay County for 12 years, and there was a lot of people there for that, and that was my entire report.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Gross, can we do yours?
On the 22nd, excuse me, highway tracking, which Commissioner Campbell's already talked about. The only other thing we also discussed there was the Linden contract, where we going to discuss with Linden what can be done with the bids coming in so high. And then the next day I did attend the Linden City Council meeting where they discussed that again. So we're going to hold off on that a little bit. Also on Wednesday the 23rd, I attended the Heartland Trail meeting in Hawley. Since there was no funds appropriated for the Heartland Trail this year, it's sort of a, I don't know what's going to be going on there this year, but be continued discussion on where the trail is going to go. 24th, I watched MRC, Minnesota Rural Counties, which was an ITV. I think Grant, you attended that down in Alexandria, I think, and I attended it by ITV, and they had a very good presentation on growth in the area. You keep on thinking there's people moving out of the area, but there's a lot of people also moving in. They're being replaced, so we're not really losing the population. On May 30th, attended a meeting on the flood grant that we will be discussing later on this morning. And on 31st, Dale Rowley, who retired from the Lakes and Prairies, attended his retirement thing in Glendon. That was my meeting.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Whalen?
Let's see, I also had the MRC meeting, Frank mentioned, and it was a good presentation from that. We had, I think Kevin mentioned the jail and LEC and detention center construction meetings, and everything's moving well there. We had a planning meeting on the ribbon cutting ceremonies for the jail and the LEC, and staff from the police and sheriff's office and Brian are doing a great job with that, and everything's pretty much in place now. We've got a few more details to work out, but I think that's going to be a nice event. And when we had a meeting on screening candidates for the county administrator's job, so, and we're having interviews next Monday. And that was it for me.
Thank you. I attended a meeting with the Planning and Zoning Department and the Highway. Sometimes what ends up happening when we're at the Planning Commission and permits come up for discussion, there's kind of this thought, well, would this affect highway, or what's the highway's position on this? Would highway want a study or whatnot? And it's always kind of we never really have an official position of the highway, and so I asked for a meeting with highway and planning to kind of discuss that and see what we could do at the application level to see if there's some way we could just have it mandatory that their highway weighs in on something like that. So I think we have a pretty good plan going forward that's going to be presented to this board for approval that would really help get an official statement of the county on how these permits could possibly affect the highway department. I had a couple of meetings regarding the administrator position. I think we'll have a summary of that with Brian's report. I attended the consideration for the sponsorship for the update to the long-term flood solution plan that we'll talk about after our break. I was asked to be a panelist at the new leadership program that happens at Morehead State. Deb White is part of that, so I appreciate being asked to be part of that last week. And then yesterday I attended the law library meeting. We had a review of the every Thursday we have some legal advice, not legal advice, but help in terms of filling out documents. I think during court sometimes that's one thing we hear from the judges is that people aren't coming to court with their documents filled out correctly. So the law library has a contract to allow advice down there in the library every Thursday, and that is something that is oftentimes up to 10 people are in the waiting line for that, so it's clearly being used. We had a discussion as to if we were to add 2 additional hours, possibly in the afternoon, if people have work commitments in mornings and aren't able to make that. So clearly we have a healthy balance in our account, and so we have the finances that could support if we were to add additional time there. And so now that Jenny's bowing out, I think we have a good plan going forward to if we need to add that. So we talked about that. The usage for the Westlaw terminals continues to be good. I brought up the issue of the transition for the jail. I think we're set there in order for that to be done well. Do you have anything to add on the library, Jenny?
No, things have been going so smoothly, and I like to hear the reports. They sound so positive, so I'm glad that that's coming along. That legal assistance program has really been the kind of the way of the future of the law library. We've trimmed down our book collection, I would guess at least half, 50%, and we've substituted in the monies towards partnering with Legal Services in Northwest Minnesota to have a person in that law library to help fill out forms or to guide people. They can't give legal advice, but they give guidance in terms of what you might need or how you fill something out. And boy, that's really been a hit. People have taken advantage of that, and to the point where we're looking to add more hours, so it's just a very positive thing for the county as a whole.
And obviously things don't do well without great leadership, and that great leadership has been provided by Jenny. So we appreciate all the things that Jenny's done for that law library over the course of her supervision. It's kind of been your baby, I guess. But other than that, that concludes my report. So we are now at our break time, so I will recess for, is it a 5-minute break? Is that what we've got scheduled?
It says
10 minutes. We will come back in session. We have a consideration of sponsorship for the application of the MPCA grant towards updating the Red River Basin long-term flood solution. Ted, welcome. We also have our
Thank you.
watershed member, Mark Anderson. Good morning.
I think Bruce is parking like half a mile away.
That's good. Everyone, we all need a little exercise.
Madam Chair, thanks for having me today. I think I know everybody except Grant and Jim. Hello.
Hi.
I'm Ted Preisser. I'm the new executive director. I got hired in January at the Red River Basin Commission. The long-term flood solutions report that was done by the commission is 8 years old at this point, and it's based upon a lot of old data. It was intended to be a living document, and so it's really time for us to update that. We've built the proposal. That's what you have there in front of you. I've already secured $125,000 in funding from Cass County. They challenged me to find some more in Minnesota, so that's part of the reason I'm here. I've been in consultation with the Corps of Engineers, and they have tentatively agreed to almost $300,000 in funding for new modeling on this. I still have to work through the details of what exactly we want them to do and whatnot, but over a 2-year period, they will spend up to $300,000, about half of the price of the upgrade of this project. So that's a really positive development that's happened since I last talked to some of you. What I'm here for today is to request your support in applying for a grant from the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. They have a planning grant that is specifically to help communities develop resiliency in planning as they go forward with climate change potential. It's a $30,000 grant, and it requires a match of 25% from someone. That's what I'm hoping to garner from Clay County, and why I've come before you, so that there would be about a $10,000 match. We had at least tentative conversations with the Buffalo Red watershed last week that they potentially could be involved in that, and there were some other potential sponsors to Wild Rice. I'm not sure how that's going to work out. I won't see them for another few days. They have a meeting scheduled that I'll be going to anyway. But what I am requesting from you all today is to support the sponsorship of that MPCA grant and be the pass-through for the funds from Minnesota.
And as we noted, Commissioner Gross and I were in that meeting along with Administrator Berg and Bruce from the watershed, and so we did have a pretty good conversation about the need. I think there definitely, I think, is evidence to support the need for updating this. Then obviously, because I think you talked about Clay County, the population, the bigger population base on the Minnesota side of the basin could be an appropriate grant sponsor for that.
Right.
So this time you're just asking, I mean, this thing's gonna cost $30,000. Because I look at this report here, the whole project's $415,000. But you're looking for just to do the study of this thing, or what are we looking for? What are we looking for?
What we're looking for from Clay County specifically is that there's a $30,000 grant that you need Clay County, or are asking for a Minnesota sponsor.
Yes.
You have a better chance of getting it with a Minnesota sponsor, and so they're asking that Clay County would be the sponsor. Required with that would be the chip in, which would be $7,500 is what the 25%
Yes.
is, but the ask is up to $10,000.
Yes.
Where would our money come from, Brian, for something like that?
Well, Madam Chair, and that's why that gentleman to Ted's left is sitting there. The Buffalo Watershed is the one we've always asked for the funding for water projects because they have the ability to tax on that. And so we would hope to have discussion with them in regards to it.
Okay.
And here's Bruce's. Hey Bruce, if you'd like to come on up.
And in addition to that grant, they're asking for $10,000, and I suggested that since the split on the watershed board is sort of 75-25, that we go to Wild Rice and ask for some money too from them, you know. So I think Ted is planning on going up there, and I'll probably plan on attending that meeting also, and look to see whether we can get some funds for that, and then share a little bit of a share of that.
But I think the criticism on what the flood solutions report is that it is outdated, and there's some things that have changed, and people that have there have been people that have been vocal about it being outdated, and so what an opportunity now to kind of redo a study. Commissioner Campbell?
Is this the study that was originally funded half by the Minnesota DNR and half by the state of North Dakota Water Commission?
The original study was funded by it was 4 partners, being the Red Board in Minnesota, the Joint Water Resource District in North Dakota, and then the state were the other 2 partners.
Because the original study was $1 million.
$1 million,
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think half of it came from Minnesota and half
Yes.
came from North Dakota. Yeah.
Yes, and that's what Cass County told me when I went and asked them for the money. Make sure you go forth and find some Minnesota money, so here I am.
And another question, from that report that was done, that you're talking about there, is that what the diversion came out of, or what was done after that report? I mean, I know you're new to the job, I mean, but what was done with that report, or what do we plan after we get done studying this? What do we plan on doing with the report? Who's gonna implement it? Who's gonna get the money to implement it, whatever we come up with?
So,
First,
go ahead.
Well, I think, Frank, that's where the locals will be able to take this type of information and continue to do what we have been doing. When the report is outdated, this report, the last time it was done, talked about and identified the needs. So the major communities needing 500-year protection, the smaller communities, the Pearly Hendrums, Halsteads of the world needing 100-year protection, ag land needing 10-year protection, farmsteads needing 100-year protection. This document identifies those needs, and then we can go about using it, the watershed districts and others. So yes and no. I mean, the diversion was identified. Fargo-Moorhead was identified in that former study as a need.
And if I can augment, the biggest benefit out of this particular update will be the new hydrology. We're going to remodel all of the hydrology across the entire basin based on the 2 biggest floods, which weren't included in this original data. So the 2009 and 11 floods aren't included in the data that is predicating all of those conversations, even the diversion. During the governor's task force, they did go back and consider some of that information, but we're going to do it across the board. And the other one that is always talked about is where the water comes from, the early, middle, and late water for flooding. Right. Well, when we did this study, they randomly picked the international border as the location. And I don't know about you, but I don't really care how much water is at the international border. I want to know how much water is at Grand Forks, and how much water is at Fargo, and how much is at Wahpeton and Breckenridge. So we're going to remodel that back to those flow points so that we can have better predictability about when there's going to be flood risks.
Okay. I know sometimes doing study on climate and stuff like that, I mean, it's pretty tough to determine whether that's gonna rain next year or not. I mean, if you can, I really applaud you for that. But
Mark would love to be able to determine when the rain's coming.
Friday afternoon at 2 o'clock. You could really put a lot of meteorologists out of a job there.
Yes, but what we can, to be the predictor here of bad things, but we know that there will be more floods.
That's right.
That's an absolute, Frank.
Okay.
Yep.
That wasn't in the report, but go ahead.
There will be more. We just don't know when. There will be 50-year floods and 100-year floods, and heaven forbid someday we're going to see a 500-year flood. And that's all probability and statistics and numbers. I say, and I told the Commissioner Mojo this here last week when we met, Buffalo Red, I don't know that we would be what we'd be today. It was a 75 summer flood, and I wasn't personally involved with that, but when they're water skiing in the wheat fields west of Barnesville, it's not good. And it was citizens that said, we need to get this watershed going, we need to be active, we need to get them involved. And for years, one of our primary mission statements has been to control and alleviate damages from floodwaters. And flooding's not going to go away. We're not done. And I think this study just helps guide us and justify the work that we do, because as you mentioned, there are people that are questioning the validity of some of the things that are going on. I think flood control was, is, and will be one of the most important things that we continue to do.
Comments? Commissioner Campbell?
Yeah, I really support this, updating this plan. I think what we're gonna find is it's gonna validate and even reconfirm what the previous study did find and did recommend in terms of what's necessary for communities up and down the basin to have for flood protection. When you consider the previous data did not include a couple of our largest floods, things are going to change. And I know through the task force work and all that stuff that was done, I think some of that was recognized. That, you know, I think it was a very good step when we determined what is the amount of cubic feet that goes through, you know, through town. I think that was a major step forward, and was based on new hydraulic information.
Mark?
So,
Sorry, were you done? No, I didn't mean, I thought you were done.
Just for budgeting, and when we go to our board, what's the timetable? I mean, we don't have to come up with the money till the grant is approved, I'm guessing, type of thing, or? Right. The grant application is due on the 26th of June, and they will have about a month of reviewing them before they announce.
So later this fall?
So,
because I might get asked that question at our board meeting.
Which is part of the reason that it's here so quickly, is that we wanted to make sure that this board had the opportunity to hear it before it was due at the end of the month. And yes, the money won't be due there's a little bit of a lag there.
And I can't speak for a whole board, but I support this, and I will, and I would guess it will be on our agenda. And
Yes, we'll put it on our agenda. I understand
Yeah,
that not Ted, you won't be available, but possibly April, when others will come to our meeting on June 11th, and we'll get a decision for you. And then we can find out what Wild Rice does, and we'll condition our approval one way or the other to either pick up to 10 or the 7,500, dependent upon Wild Rice.
don't let them know, we'll pick it up if they don't.
It's a big secret, right?
They need to be a part of this. They too are just as involved as we are, so.
No, that's why I recommended that this, I realized that you said you willing to participate in this, but I recommended that we go to Wild Rice and get part of that, you know. I got another question on this grant application here. When they say there's only 493,000 available, that's, I mean, we're just applying for the 30,000 of that, right?
Right.
Because I looked at the whole thing, it's 480, 415, okay.
Right, like you said earlier, Cass County committed to 125.
125, the Corps of Engineers is roughly 300. This brings me to 40, and then I will go to the Red Board and the North Dakota Joint Board to ask for the rest of that.
Okay, very good. I shouldn't read so much of this stuff.
So that we'll all have a lot of partners on this project.
So I think what you'd like is a recommendation for this board to Bruce's board that we support the sponsorship up to 10,000. Brian?
Well, Madam Chair, what they're asking for is for Clay County to be the sponsor, the fiscal agent of that $25,000.
So then let's talk about the sponsorship commitment if the watershed boards don't. Is this board okay with finding $10,000 to be the match should the watershed say no? Correct?
I would hope the watershed wouldn't say no, but we need to do this.
Right, okay.
Right, and that, Madam Chair, that would only be needed if you decided then to accept the grant, but this is only approval to request the grant.
But it seems like we're in an abbreviated timeline, so I just wanted to make sure that this board is fine. I think $10,000 is a minimal ask in terms of how much these projects cost.
Bruce probably knows this off his head, but how much of our comes from Clay County versus?
Approximately 70%.
So,
just.
Yep. Motion.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
We have a motion of support from Commissioner Whalen, a second Commissioner Campbell. Any further discussion?
In terms of what the request would be for the Wild Rice, do we have we know the geographical area, how much of Clay County is in the Buffalo and how much is in the Wild Rice, correct?
I'm guessing Mr. Sloan could tell you that right off his...
Yeah, so could we maybe use that as a proportionate,
that would be,
fair and equitable way to do it. To ask each entity to contribute? I would think that would be certainly my suggestion, that we maybe propose that to both entities based on that geographical area of Clay County.
And if the county does come up with that well, I'm sure it's available, I can go find out, then we can bring that to our board on Monday night, since it's coming before them already on June 11th, so.
And I think one more thing, we need to, excuse me, we need to get on the Wildlife Watershed Board agenda. I don't know if that's been requested, put in there or not. Ted, I don't know if you've
We talked
talked
about
to
that
them.
on
I'll be talking to their board members today. I have to run into them on a separate subject, so
Very good.
I'll see what I can do to get on the agenda.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Further discussion? If not, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you, Ted. Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Karen Lauer, we have an update on tax forfeit lots acquired by Barnesville Economic Development Authority.
Morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
There's two different handouts. Let's start one on each side.
Boy, driving down Main Street, it looks like you've got an update.
Yes, absolutely. And I actually gave you my copies too, but maybe one will circle back to
Okay.
me. So, thank you. So thank you for this opportunity to update you. As you know, the Clay County Commissioners play a very important role when tax forfeit properties become available, and we certainly appreciate the support that you as commissioners as well as staff have provided in making these projects a reality. I'd like to talk about the last two tax forfeit properties that have been approved by the Clay County Commissioners. The first one I'd like to talk about is this document, the old 52 building, which Jenny, as you mentioned, is located in downtown Barnesville. And this is a property that was constructed in 1899. It was vacant for, I believe, about a 13-year period, and after kind of a rocky history, it ended up becoming tax forfeit. It's such an important part of our downtown because it's such a large building. It's 75 feet wide and it's in the main block of downtown. So because it's 7,500 square feet, it's not just anyone that can utilize a building that large. So once we acquired it, we went on the hunt to try to identify someone who could utilize this prime location in downtown Barnesville. We saw interest from Stone Ridge Software, which some of you might be familiar with, as a company that was started by Eric and Becky Newell in the basement of their house in Barnesville about 6 years ago, and has now grown to be a company with over 110 employees, with their corporate headquarters in Barnesville, though they do have a location in Golden Valley, Minnesota. And they actually have staff people throughout the United States. So we're certainly proud of their success. We're currently leasing them space in the upstairs of the old City Hall building, but they had outgrown that space. So Eric, the CEO of the company, is a lover of historic buildings and certainly had a lot of interest in this location. As they corporately looked at, did this make sense for them to purchase the property from the EDA and rehab it, it was determined that that really probably wasn't in the best interest of the company. So we were able to identify a developer, a local developer with knowledge of building construction and so forth, who took on the project of purchasing the building from the EDA for $1 and is now in the process of rehabilitating the building to the way that it was when it was constructed in 1899. So this is an investment of over $700,000 And fortunately, we were able to put together a lease deal with Stone Ridge Software where they will move into the building. They've made a commitment of 5 years. And so what I've provided to you today is a picture of the building when we acquired it. And though it looked fine from the outside, appearances are not everything. So in the interior, it was in poor condition. The roof was totally shot. And so, as I noted here, 36 roll-offs of material were removed from the building. It now has a new roof, has a whole new mechanical system, plumbing, heating, electrical system. And we're well on our way to this project being completed probably no later than September. So Stone Ridge is expected to move in this fall. And again, thanks to you folks, we were able to put together the financial package that included tax increment financing. Barnesville provided low-interest loans. The Clay County Loan Fund assisted in that project, as well as we were able to get our first Job Creation Fund award from the state of Minnesota to help this project come together. So there was a lot of partners that really made this happen, you folks certainly being a key partner in that. And I think that you as commissioners should be proud of being part of something that will create a building in downtown Barnesville that looks just like the buildings in downtown Fargo, where they've been restored to their original condition with these large glass windows that go all the way up to the steel beam. And certainly it's another opportunity to expand a business, add more employment within the county. And so I think that's a fabulous project that could not have happened without your assistance.
Great news, yeah.
Yeah, so unless anyone has any questions on that, I'll just quickly move on to the second project I wanted to update you on.
I just have one question.
Yes.
When you talk about 100 employees, what parking for all that down there?
The company has 100 employees. The 100 employees are not all located in Barnesville. So Stone Ridge Software recently acquired a company out of Fargo, DFC Consultants. So there's office space in Fargo, Golden Valley, Barnesville, as well as a number of their employees are able to actually operate out of their home. So we do have what we believe is adequate parking to meet the needs of this facility. Particularly because Stone Ridge Software puts a great focus on having healthy employees. So they do a lot of walking. They have walking meetings where rather than sitting at a desk, 2 or 3 of them will actually walk around the community and discuss matters. So we do think we'll be able to meet their needs.
Sounds like a summer project, though.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So the second project that you have a handout on is the former Brayton Excavating project, and you might recall that this was a project and a property that we acquired tax forfeit in 2017, and at that time I provided you with extensive numbers of photos. On today's handout, you just see a smattering of those, but certainly the condition of the property was such that from the city of Barnesville and the EDA standpoint, we were very concerned about potential contamination on the site. It had been used by an excavation septic tank company that tended to accumulate a lot of junk and certain fluids and so forth, motor oil, et cetera, on the site. So what happened after you folks approved the tax forfeiture transfer, Barnesville Public Works immediately began cleanup on the site, and as you can see on the handout, they removed 22 roll-offs of material. So we're also keeping the Clay County landfill in business here. Yeah. And there was 800 gallons of oil diesel fuels and antifreeze stored on site. And during their cleanup, I also applied for grants through the MTAP program, which is connected with MPCA. And under that program, Braun Intertech was awarded the project to complete a phase 1 and phase 2 environmental assessment. They were just on site a couple of weeks ago doing the drilling for the phase 2, and we're expecting that report in the next few weeks here. That will determine if any cleanup is needed on the site. And I was talking with the consultant yesterday. It depends how the property is going to be used. It certainly doesn't appear that extensive cleanup is going to be needed, so it isn't going to be one of these probably $500,000 cleanup projects. But I'll know more in the next couple of weeks. But you can see on the right-hand side, the photos that I took yesterday. The top photo is the area that really is the top photos on the left. So there were sundry weird buildings. Those have all been removed. All of the debris has been removed. And then the lower level is the rear part of the building. And you do see that there's some barrels in that building. Those happen to be trash barrels that we use for the fair and potato days and so forth. So it's now used as partial storage for Public Works. But the really exciting thing about this project is that 7 different individuals have contacted me indicating, when is this building going to be available? I'm interested in this prime location. The site, meets my needs. So the city and the EDA have said, as soon as we get a clean bill of health on the property, we'll then put out a request for proposals to make people aware that the site is available, and then we'll have established criteria to evaluate the proposals that come in. And certainly our interest is getting this property on the tax rolls as quickly as possible. Again, dependent on the phase 2 report that we're expecting from Braun Intertech in the near future. So I think certainly cleaning up properties is so critical, and I know that that's an issue across Clay County of what are the tools so that communities are able to address situations like this. And we're pretty motivated to make things happen in Barnesville, but we're only able to do that through your assistance. And going back to the other projects, certainly folks like Brian, Lori, and Nancy played an important role in being able to connect the dots and getting the tax income and financing in place. So
A great collaboration.
Who owns this land now? Barnesville City owns this land?
the EDA owns that at present. Yeah.
Any other comments? Great work, Karen. Thank
Yeah,
you.
so we wanted to certainly take the time to thank you for your support. And if you're in Barnesville, please take an opportunity to look at both of those sites, and we'll be sure to keep you posted as the property becomes available to the public, so you're aware of that as
Great
well.
news.
So
Thank you very much.
you're very welcome.
Thank you, Karen.
We have, next on our agenda is a request approval to expand the new law enforcement center furniture, fixtures, and equipment FF&E budget. Steve Lanson, Lieutenant.
Good morning. Morning. We're here to kind of update the board and request for the approval to expend some of the monies needed for the FF&E. I think I did give you a printout of some of the monies that has been expended so far, and some that need to be the bids honored, like Homemaker's Villa and et cetera, for stoves and fridges for break rooms and stuff like that. The total budget was $383,556, and what we've expended so far, if the request is granted, would be the $197,183. We have anticipated this FF&E monies to be spent at the sheriff's department, and a few years ago, Matt Cyril started to hold back some of our forfeiture money, anticipating this, to be able to use some of that money on some of the monitors and utilize that for the new law enforcement center. And that total is about $42,000 that we've been able to expend with forfeiture monies. Some of that is tied to statute requirements on what we can use it for, but that's what we've come up with those accounts that we can expend it on, from our pistol permit account to drug and state drug forfeitures and local drug forfeitures. So, and another area is what Brian's here to discuss. He has an internal service fund for some communications that we can probably use for the new EOC in the law enforcement center, for the monitors and the phones and some of the systems, some of the computer systems that are used in some of the conference rooms. And we wanted to make you aware that that possibly could be available also, to come down to this number we're at.
$20,000, right?
Yeah.
Part of that, that's the internal service on our Del Armor project. We use the internal service to pay for our new equipment, portables, mobiles and stuff like that. And part of that internal service was located in our EOC. Of course, now we're moving to a new EOC, so I think that's what ties into this internal service. And we're still in the process of trying to get everything taken care of, bringing down the towers and all that stuff. But we're pretty close to being done. And then I checked with Lori last week about how much money is still left in that internal service. She said there's approximately $300,000 left in that. I do have some more items that we have to take care of though, and I hope that will not run over $100,000 by any means. Hope not. So I do have a couple other things relating to that, but if we want to take care of this first.
The only thing that's really coming up that isn't on the list that I gave you is some office signage throughout the building. We have to become ADA compliant on them, the numberings of the rooms and bathrooms and everything. I'm waiting for a bid for that, but that's going to be part of the FF&E if we get approval to expend that money.
So you need the approval to expend these FF&E dollars.
So moved.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Whalen, second by Commissioner Haney. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. And you said you had a couple other issues?
Yes, we have buildings located in Dilworth, Barnesville, and also Ewan, where we house all our communications equipment. They're quite heavy and quite large, really built. They're not that big, they're like 10 by 25 feet, but they're still cost money to move them. I did contact the city of Barnesville. They are willing to take that building over at its present location, and the same thing with Dilworth. Ewan does not want anything to do with it, so I guess I'm looking for permission from the board that we give them two buildings to Dilworth and also Barnesville.
I think the expense of us moving them far outweighs collaborating with the cities to give them shelters.
Okay. Any further discussion, clarification?
You need a motion on that? Make a motion.
Yes, please.
I'll make a motion.
We have a motion to approve.
Second.
And a
That's for the two
second
buildings.
for the
Yeah.
two buildings.
Dilworth and Barnesville.
Okay. Any idea what you're gonna do with Ewan?
We do have an idea. They do want it moved off their property, and we do have other property, the county does, with the greater building. And I haven't talked to Dave yet, we're just starting with this, but maybe we'll have to move it from there to there.
Okay.
And then hopefully they can use it. The other thing is the tower, and our landfill tower. That's quite a large tower. It's really no use except for scrap metal. But I think probably the best thing we could do is just delay that. There is a county ordinance on a tower that all the equipment's taken off, you have 1 year to take it down. I think maybe that we should just leave that. Gonna be gone in December, so somebody else is gonna have to take care of this. But the tower will still be there. Now, there's also a large building there with a generator and stuff like that. Now, Cass County and City of Fargo, if they switch over to the Armor building, they'll be able to utilize that building. So hopefully we can just have them come and take it over there and we can get that off the landfill.
Madam Chair?
Yeah. Excuse me, can we just have that motion based upon legal review, being that there's no information, I haven't had a chance to review that, so I just want to make sure that that's a proper transfer to the cities involved.
Okay, that's
I'll
appropriate.
add that to the motion.
What's your motion and second?
Yeah.
So is it just the building, or? So
Correct.
does Barnesville and Dilworth currently own the land that's sitting on?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yep.
it's just,
It's both their water towers, so.
okay.
If not, we have a motion and a second, pending legal review. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Thanks, guys.
All right, our next item is the appointment of the Clay County Recorder.
Sorry, Madam Chair, did you call?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I thought so. Kimberly?
Yeah.
You want to join me, please? Well, good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. It gives me a lot of pleasure to be here today for this item. We have, as my memo says, and that you had reported on your PIC committee, that this item of consideration for your next county recorder has been discussed in depth. You know, we have a land management committee to look at different aspects of a land management group, and we took a look at that, and then the item did go to the PIC committee before coming to the full board, and the PIC committee is in full endorsement of asking the board for the appointment of Kimberly Savageau to as your next county recorder effective June 9th. I think Kimberly's done just a super job in the recorder's office. She is really detailed, and she's a taskmaster, and she gets things done. And I can honestly say, I think I've told you this before, I don't recall that I have received a complaint about the recorder's office the whole time I've been here. And I have, in fact, just the opposite from the public viewing the operation. Donna sits outside of their door quite a bit, and she's said, I think she's mentioned to me at least twice, how good the employees are at the recorder's office in helping out the public. And that just speaks volumes. And I know there's a couple of members on the PIC committee here that may want to say something too, but my recommendation and ours was certainly to appoint Kimberly.
Yeah, thank you. We did talk about this in the Personal Issues Committee, and you know, we did go through the process of having a discussion about, you know, changing things in terms of the, you know, Brian, we talked about a land office management type of deal, and the more we looked at it, it just, it made perfect sense that with your qualifications and the need to still have that independent source for the citizens of Clay County, that you were the right fit for this, and we fully supported that. And I do want to mention too that just this morning, I think all of us received something from Bonnie Rader, former recorder, that strongly encouraged us to also support you in your position, that she gave you high accolades. So I fully support this.
I agree. I think that we're kind of in a time with different departments in which there are some retirements coming up, and we've talked a lot about transition planning and how will these departments look once a department head were to have left. And I think that the recorder's office really has done a fantastic job in terms of making sure you had access to the appropriate training and courses, and you know, the different monitoring of parcels. And so I think you've the recorder's office really did a great job of kind of grooming you for this next step, and I agree. I think that this is a great fit. I'm excited for your what the department looks like under your leadership, and I also support what this appointment would be. We have a motion to approve the appointment.
Second.
And a second. Further discussion. Further discussion. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
I appreciate the opportunity.
This will be effective June 9th.
And just for further information, it says in your memo there too that Kimberly did occupy the chief deputy recorder, and through our discussions with the size of the office, we don't feel it's necessary to fill that position. So there is some monetary savings in that, a little bit of a reorganization in regards to that. So Kimberly will supervise the 3 employees in there. So.
Great. Thank you.
Good deal.
Congratulations.
Thanks. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Brian, you're next.
I am.
Yeah. The update on the correctional facility.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. What you have before you is a furthering of the progress of the 2 projects, the law enforcement center and the correctional facility. And I've been before you a few times to update you on the changes that have taken place, and also to gain your permission for the changes that have come down the pike and that will come down the pike. And if what you have before you, before I go into that, what you have before you, the amount of the project is not changing. Again, the change orders are within the contingencies that were allowed out of the chute. But what you did do is you allowed the committee, your 2 commissioners, to approve up to $25,000 of change orders, and you've got a few in the back there, and I know you'll see the total is $41,000, but the first one, the PR number 21, has not occurred yet, so we're not ahead of the game there. So if you take that $15,500 off of there, you're back to very close to that $25,000. So I just want to reassure you that we've tried to obey your order in regards to staying as close as we can to that. But I'll just skim through those changes. They're listed on that page. But what was left there, and that janitorial closet and toilet access, that was not included. There was space there, but it was not included in the design plans, and they really need that janitorial closet in there. So that is going to be placed in there, and it's been discussed for several months, I guess, at our construction meetings. The other are some minor change orders. The casework is just some additional needs of the cabinetry in there, and some changes. There's a big one, the $31,000 credit. That's a credit, and that was to take out some of the concrete work around by the juvenile center. That was designed and bid to be put in there, but it would have been put in only to be taken out by the juvenile center so that was caught early on. It's been in the discussion stages for quite a while, that would not need to be done if the juvenile project was to go forward. Now, of course, you guys have decided to go ahead with that, so that's a credit to our system there. A couple other, the courthouse security requirement changes, that's a little bit more of a cost in some of the design changes there, and you've heard quite a bit of that, of how the courthouse and the law enforcement center are now going to be standalone from the correctional facility on the flow of the cameras and the recording of that security issues. The same with the deletion of some of the issues referenced, the security equipment. And the next one, PR 40, is a big increase, and that was the ceiling diffusers within the correctional facility itself. The first level was designed with security diffusers, and on the plans, the second level did not have the security diffusers in them. So that's an upgrade, and there are like 29 diffusers in grate that were added to that. And we hashed that over a great deal, and we came to the conclusion that they were needed. There haven't been installed in some other designs. I was told yesterday that the architects, it can work both ways, and the leaving it out of the second floor was not unusual, but putting them in makes it a safer and better place in the long run. And we had much discussion about that and felt that we needed to have this. It's brand new. It's going to be the new technology in it. So, and then there was some additional security wall requirements in which they had to change some height because they could not see over them. And you know, you can design it, I guess, for the best plan laid, but when you're hiring all sizes, and I know you should take that into account when it's designed, but they got just a little bit too high, so they were taking down a level of that height in the control area. So, and that gets costly when you start taking out block, everything in that place. So anyway, you have a net effect of around $25,000. It's $41,000, $459 that I'm asking for permission on. And, so that'll bring you up to date on the change orders.
If I can just mention on the PR 40, part of that, you know, in listening to our correctional facility staff, there was a real concern if we didn't do that, there was potential for contraband and that type of thing being able to be used there, and that is just not a good thing. It's unfortunate it wasn't caught earlier, but you know, when you get a $30-some million facility, some things just pop up. But.
And Madam Chair, maybe, I think we're around $500,000 yet in contingencies, and that is really good. So
that's on the correctional facility.
That's on the correctional facility, yes. Yeah, and it's still left. So, and you've got a small project, that addition is a small portion of it.
Well, that's on the contractor contingency, isn't it? Because there's also additional owner contingency dollars that have not been used. So
right.
I think the number's close to $750,000.
Maybe it's closer to 700 if you add them together, yeah. Gosh, I thought that owner contingency was my bonus or something. I didn't know, I was just assuming.
It was until you said
Oh.
I'll move that. We have a motion to approve the change order.
Second.
And a second. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
All right, Dave Overbo. You have a request for approval of out-of-state travel?
And I've got a little summary for item number 2.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, my first item would be to request to be able to attend a bridge scanning tour. It's down in Iowa. It does start this week. I went to it a couple of years ago, and it's kind of headed by Federal Highway Department. Minnesota State Bridge also attends, as well as several other county engineers. They do a lot of unique things down in Iowa. They do a lot of in-house construction, a lot of different types of construction on bridges. So we like to go down there and see what they're doing, have a little visit on some of the bridge practices, innovations, and things that they're doing. There would be no cost to the county, as it's all picked up by Federal Highway. Would essentially be gone for about 2 days. Would be coming back late Thursday night.
What are the wishes?
Move to approve.
There's a motion to approve
Second.
and a second. Any further discussion?
Have you ever thought of bringing Lee with?
Yeah, you know, and a lot of times there is different inspectors that go. He and I have done different stuff like this, I guess, so, yeah, I should check with Lee and kind of double see how his schedule is.
I mean, if it's got to do with technologies in all those areas, and he's our bridge inspector, it might not be a bad
Absolutely.
idea for.
Yeah, good idea.
To be considered.
All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. And then you have an update from your conference.
Yeah, so this is the National County Engineer Conference that Eric and I attended in April. It was in Wisconsin Dells this year. I thought maybe it'd be a good idea just to kind of try to bullet point some of the things that we learned in the classes and different things that we attended while we were there. The main thing that we focused on this year, and every year they have different things. A lot of times it's safety related. Pavement management and preservation has probably been their biggest topic that we took interest in this year. They did have some other really neat sessions on motor grader training that we took in, and we thought that was very relevant. They did have stuff on safety projects, which we are also in the process of doing a comprehensive highway safety project update to our current plan. So we attended sessions on that. There was a lot of networking, and there's a 2 days vendor fair that goes on there. And it's interesting, you go to these conferences, and I know this one is a little closer than most, but there's a lot of local presence there. The 3M rep that we deal with is there. The 2 culvert companies are there. The guy that designs those walk and roll packers that we have on our motor graders, Udo, was there, and talked to him quite a bit, and actually set up a meeting with him when he was on his way back. As they make a little wider one now, so I thought, well, why don't you swing in and look at ours and give us a trade number, and just to see what it would cost to possibly look at making those a little bit wider. I don't think we're gonna do that, but I thought it would be at least good to talk about it. Anyway, it was just a really good networking event. There's a lot of different county engineers that you get to know over the years. One of the highlights was the Polk County engineer was introduced as the president of our national association, so it was fun to be there and represent Minnesota as well. So I appreciate allowing me to attend that, and I feel it's beneficial to the county, and we continue to learn and try to do good things when we get back home.
Great. Well, thank you for this. You know, often, a lot of you go to conferences, so it's fun to hear back, you know, what you being and what you bring back. So thank you. Great. All right, thanks, Dave. So we've all done our committee reports. Do you want to do yours, Brian?
Oh, sure, Madam Chair, thank you. First thing on my list here is to check with you, reference June 26th, that's a Tuesday after board meeting, the Clay County Appreciation Committee is putting on that picnic which you sponsor every year, and you usually help out with that, so I guess I just wanted to bring it to your attention, and if you wanted to help out, I'm sure you can let Darren know and coordinate with him of what you want to do, or when, or why, or just show up, or whatever.
All right.
So, highway tracking's already been mentioned in detail by 2 commissioners, so I guess I don't need to mention that. I met with the city manager, referenced legislation and the roles of the 2 governmental entities and where do we go from here and things. So we've talked a little bit about that in the past. Had one meeting with with April, and Ted referenced that MPCA grant that you guys talked about this morning, that talked in detail. And then we had a follow-up meeting with the commissioners, the commissioners that represent the watersheds on that. Had an insurance update from Darren and Jennifer in regards to what that subcommittee is doing. Is we'll be having a full committee on 13th as well, I think, of June, 13th, 12th, okay. Attended the solid waste meeting last Thursday morning. Met with Steve and Brian in regards to the items that they presented with earlier here. It's already been talked about. Attended the planning and zoning and highway meeting, reference a procedure. In regards to that, met with Nick Cricky from Construction Engineers on the change orders that were presented here. Attended the new hire orientation for quite a few. I guess we only had 3 that day, yeah. And then had a second meeting with Steve and Brian on some other issues and personnel things that they wanted to talk about. We had the construction meeting. There's 3 of them now. The correctional facility, the law enforcement center, and then the juvenile center. We talked about, I guess, the changes as we do continuously, and we talked, it's already been talked here, the ribbon cutting date is set for July 24th. We'll just emphasize that again, and we're on schedule to do that. I did have the opportunity to, I hadn't gone through the places for a couple months, so I did go through them yesterday, and boy, they are making progress. Really pleased with the workmanship and what we saw in there. It was really looking good. We had a meeting, it's already been mentioned, but the Administrator Screening Committee got together to go through the applicants, and we'll talk a little more about that after I get done with the other things here. Jennifer just came in, so we'll talk a little more about that. We had that individual committee meeting for the ribbon cutting. 2 commissioners are involved in that with us. I met with Michael Steen from the Barnesville Recorder again on an update on the construction projects. Darren and I met, reference the sergeant's positioning in the correctional facility, which will be brought to you next meeting. We had a meeting on campus parking. Now, it is June 11th that they do plan to move the construction shack. The trailer over here is going to be moved to this back area. I gotta get it's right behind us, right here. That whole area is going to be shut down for the remainder of the project, because the construction trailer's got to sit in there, plus they have to fence that off, because they're going to then demo that annex and the law enforcement center. So they're moving the trailer, and it takes room to work. So that's all going to happen around June 11th. The reason why June 11th we kind of picked that is because they need time then to finish off the parking lot over in front of the law enforcement center. And again, we've checked with the school, and we can utilize that during the summer months. So we'll have all that new parking over there, plus the 10th Street will be done, and that's parking on both sides of that. And the 9th Avenue, just south of the new law enforcement center, you see the torn up there. That's going to be then available for parking too. So that's kind of the timing that we've worked out to not disrupt things as much as we can around here. So I did attend Dale Raleigh's retirement. Must have been a little later than you were there, because you weren't there when I got there. But Steve, I met with him a couple times on the FF&E, and as he stated, we have budgeted $383,000, and we're around 200,000. But then there'll be odds and ends too. So we're sitting pretty good, and I know Georgia and Joe have met on some cleaning needs for the facilities, and they're going to be coming in and asking for some pretty good equipment that will help clean those hallways and things. And if you remember right, they plan to do it with the personnel that they have. So in order to do that, they need some good equipment to do that, and they'll be in and talk to you about that. Kirk and Larry asked for another meeting here just on the pickup, and I know Larry will be coming in with a new pickup request here pretty soon. I got a letter from the Petro Fund, and just yesterday or the day before, and I guess I've expressed some frustration in the past about that, but I think our amount is $4,880.93 that they will be reimbursing us for. So that's quite a distance from the 25,000 or something that we expected on it. But anyway, I suppose something's better than nothing. And I laid on your desks this morning a retirement letter from Tim Magnuson, your zoning director, that he will be retiring the end of June. He's on a couple weeks vacation right now. He'll be back for a couple of weeks, and then he's done. So we will need to talk about that going forward, and looking at some possibilities and things like that. So, and with that, I've asked Jennifer to come in. Maybe we should just sit up here. She has a list for you, and you do have a day planned, a day of interviews planned on the 11th. And in your board packet, there was an announcement that went out to the media that that'll be a special board day then on the 11th. We don't want to violate any open meeting laws, so you'll be all together on that date here in the courthouse. I think it's going to be in room B. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jennifer.
So excuse me, Madam Chair and Commissioners, I provided a list of the names of the 5 candidates that are finalists for interviews. I apologize for the delay on that. The last one was confirmed this morning, so this is the final list. This is a short list. If you'd like more information, I can provide that to you. 4 of them are internal, 1 of them external. The interviews are scheduled for an hour each on June 11th in meeting room B here. The first one is going to be a Skype meeting. He is out of the country, so we have tested that to make sure that works. And I will have packets ready for each of you for those interviews on that day, provided to you with the questions as well. So does anybody have any questions about the process or the candidates?
Are we gonna be provided with an application of background of these people before we interviews, or?
Certainly can.
Yes.
Mhm.
That was part of our discussion, is that we were gonna background the finalist.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I think the question was, he would like the documentation of that candidate prior to.
Or the application, you know.
Are you talking about background checks or the application?
Not the application.
I apologize. You can have those.
Yeah, I can get those to you.
I guess I'd like them before, whenever.
We should really copy them and give them to you before you leave today, if that would be possible, Jennifer.
Sure.
I think that would be good.
Thank you.
And I'm assuming she'll have score sheets for you and the questions too, and you should have those before. What the intent was, I know last time, again, we'll jump back 8 years, I know Jennifer then did kind of facilitate, and I think she asked the questions, and you guys did follow-up questions and badgered the candidates, if I remember right. A little humor there, folks.
Yeah, very little.
Try not to make the same mistakes.
Try not to make the same mistake again, that's exactly right. And I guess just for discussion's sake, the idea was to have you 5 in the room with Jennifer, and if you request anybody else, then please do. But the intent is that, I guess, I wouldn't be in there or anybody else, so, unless you request it.
It's an open meeting.
Well, it's an open meeting. I mean,
Oh, that's true,
right,
yeah.
I mean, it's open meeting.
From staff, anyway,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So, and that kind of updates it.
And then we were gonna have some time at the end to have a discussion, that's still the plan after all of the interviews?
We do have the room for the entire day, so we would have time afterwards for discussion.
So have these names been made public?
Right now they are.
Right now they are.
And we did have one candidate withdraw. They did inquire about the names being public, and we said that the 5 finalists that go to the board is public information, and they chose to withdraw, so.
I have a question. Did you receive other applicants that are not listed here?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
That's what the screening committee, we met last week and went through the score sheets.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam
Thank you.
Chair.
And I emailed you in regards to the questions are good. Anything further?
Yes, I'd like, I see on our agenda that the annual update from the Historical Society, and I don't know whether Maureen was gonna be here or not, or what the deal was, but I just wanted to comment on it, you know, about the annual report for the Historical Society. I mean, they had because of the St. John's Bible, which they had last year, they had a very good year. I mean, the Historical Society had a good year. Upcoming events for them, Viking Festival, June 23rd, interest in that. Also, the part of the annual meeting, they always give out an award for people who have been very involved in the Historical Society. And I'm sure you're acquainted with the guy, John Everett, who used to be county commissioner here and has been very involved with the Historical Society. He was awarded that award, the Heritage Award. So, just want to give a little update on that. I mean, you've got the report, you can read that, and, like I said, I don't know whether Maureen had planned on being here or not, but just to cover that item.
So I was going to comment on that, so thank you for covering that. Anything else? If not, we are adjourned.